In today's video, continuing the exploration of the Palladium role-playing system, in which one set of core rules is used across a wide variety of different role-playing story themes, and settings as we call them, I'd like to illustrate one of the fundamental differences in the Palladium playstyle and the deeper impact it has on how the game is played, compared to the original role-playing system Dungeons & Dragons, and how it is largely still played today. So you could say this is an integral core difference that really defines the difference between these two rule systems and the way players of the two think about the game. So today, let's take a look at alignment and experience points. First though, I'd like to point out that I personally don't really need such a defined set of rules for these concepts. I've been enjoying role-playing games so long and in such variety, I don't really need the training wheels anymore. I just ride the bike. But it doesn't change the fact that I learned to ride with these same training wheels, and to this day, they form the language and the framework I still use when I think about some aspects of psychology and even the way memory works. So I think this topic is quite important, even if it can be optional. I don't personally believe a role-playing system should ignore them completely, just as I don't think experienced players need to cling to the strict set of rules in all of their games. I just think they are a necessary building block that goes into training someone like me how to roleplay. So let's take a look at what is most likely familiar to you at first, the Dungeons & Dragons alignment system, and the way experience points are viewed in the modern game. I'd also like to touch on how even this core part of the system, or what we would call a game mechanic, has changed over the years and different editions, along with the change in the way we gamers think about the concept of mental growth and such. Then we can take a look at the Palladium alignment system and how that system deals with players gaining experience points. In Dungeons & Dragons, the moral and ethical outlook of any thinking creature is divided into categories. We call these alignments. There is a fairly stark divide between them along two concepts. On the one side, it's how comfortable a person or thinking creature or thing is with things either being lawful or chaotic. A strictly lawful creature is compelled to follow rules, understand how things work, and expects the same results if they do things a certain way. They like things to be set, predictable, controlled, and managed. They are uncomfortable with the unpredictable and unknown, lawlessness and, well, chaos. The other aspect of alignment is related to either being good or evil in their outlook, proclivities, or what brings them satisfaction and pleasure, and the sort of environment they are comfortable in, particularly when it comes to the welfare of themselves over those of others. There is a middle ground here called neutral, which represents a lack of strong drive towards either. They don't care so much and are thus motivated more by the law or chaos side of things. And there is even a completely neutral alignment type where they don't care much for law or chaos either and are really just very self-centered. They are not persuaded by much other than their own self-interest. To their credit, they tend to avoid impacting on the lives of others if they can be bothered one way or the other. Despite this sounding like a character very hard to motivate into action in the game, I've found it's not like that at all. They can be some of the most interesting, contradictory, and driven characters to play or deal with, as their character is very hard to read and yet very self-motivated. A great character should drive interesting plots in your games. That leveling up in Dungeons & Dragons is a fairly big deal. Unlocking new abilities, attribute points increase access to new feats and so on, while leveling up a character in Palladium's role-playing system is not really as dramatic. It has never been the focus of any gameplay from my point of view. Nowhere near the driving factor has always been in Dungeons & Dragons. Also, the way experience points are gained is quite different. Let me go right back to the very first edition of Dungeons & Dragons and quote what is written there directly, and then I will skip ahead to the introduction of the Cavalier and Barbarian character classes and some interesting quotes from their text regarding experience points. But first, let's compare how the psychological alignment system differs from D&D. In Palladium, the Megaversal system, the alignments have a single word name. The two good alignments are principled and scrupulous. The two selfish alignments are called unprincipled and anarchist. And there are three evil alignments which are named aberrant, miscreant, and diabolic. These alignments have a set of clearly defined hard limits on what the creature will and will not do. A short list, but it conveys the alignment very well. Principled characters will always keep their word, never use torture for any reason, respect authority, and never betray a friend. While an anarchist-aligned character may keep their word, may use torture but never for enjoyment of it, they may betray a friend and have little respect for authority. And diabolic characters rarely keep their word, have no honor, regularly use torture as they enjoy it, betray anyone without hesitation, and blatantly break laws while mocking figures of authority. Just to name a few of the 13 to 14 different behavioural examples provided. Added to this are clearly defined rules for mental illness, trauma, and quite a good education system, which we can delve into trained skills and such in a later video. I found over the years, the simple change of calling a character selfish rather than neutral is instantly clearer on the basic motivations they have, and the Palladium system's guidelines of behaviour just lend themselves to understanding what sort of a character you're dealing with, its personality type, not some personification of cosmic principles. Players of the Palladium system often refer to the different alignments by the names of famous characters from popular media that best fit the definitions, such as the principled character being like Superman. The unprincipled character is like Han Solo. The aberrant alignment is a perfect representation of an honourable but basically evil person, such as a mafia leader or even a former hero now twisted by an overwhelming drive for revenge, for example. Diabolic beings are truly evil with no redeeming qualities and a danger to anyone they are around, but it's possible for an aberrant character to blend into society perfectly well. They may even appear to be doing good most of the time. I find the Palladium system was clearer and more nuanced at the same time, a good evolution of the way psychological profiles and motivations are handled in the role-playing game. Back to experience points. Here are the quotes from the very early editions of Dungeons & Dragons First from the original white box set. 1 point of experience will be awarded for 1 gold piece gained by a character, with copper pieces, silver pieces, electrum pieces, platinum pieces, gems, jewellery, and like treasure being converted into a gold piece value. Magic items gained and retained only have a low experience point value, for they benefit the character through their use. They also have limited values if the situation or monster guarding the loot was easy to overcome to gain it. And later this explanation is in more detail and goes into give great insight into how the early editions of D&D were intended to be played. Experience points awarded for treasure gained, monetary or magical, are modified downward if the guardian of the treasure, whether a monster, device, obstacle, such as a secret door or a maze, was generally weaker than the character who overcame it. A 4th level character versus a single orc is an overmatch, and only about 10% of the treasure value gained could count towards experience points. But if 9 or 10 orcs were involved, the experience points awarded would generally be one of 1-for-1 basis. Monsters captured or slain always bring a full experience point award. Captured monsters ransomed or sold bring a gold piece experience point ratio award. Monsters slain gain a set point award. Low hit dice pool monsters have a low experience point amount, and monsters with high hit points and dice have a large experience point award. Special abilities such as magic resistance, spell capability, gaze or breath weapons, regeneration and the like also increase experience points amounts. Finally, clerics' major aims are to use their spell abilities to aid during a given encounter. Fighters aim to engage in combat, magic users aim to cast spells, thieves aim to make gain by stealth, and monks aim to use their unusual talents to come to successful ends. If characters gain treasure by the pursuit of their major aims, then they are generally entitled to a full share of experience points awarded by the DM. Your DM will award your characters experience points as explained. He or she has detailed information respecting this subject and a chart of experience points to be given for monsters slain, with bonus points shown for special abilities of monsters. After being awarded points, you will be expected to add any bonus due for higher major characteristic ability. Total the whole and record the number of experience points now possessed by the character. Remember, character henchmen will gain only 1/2 of total experience. Your referee might require you to inform him or her of new experience point totals in order to keep records. This prevents any fudging on the part of overzealous players. So, player characters gained additional experience by capturing and ransoming enemies for gold, which also gave them experience points, which goes massively against the narrative that early D&D was all about kicking down doors, looting treasure and killing anything in the way. Far from it. This game was about a leader who had proven their mettle, who now leads a team of henchmen and other specialists into danger, captures exotic monsters and villains, ransoms them back for profit, and supports the local civilization by spending that wealth on wages for the henchmen, equipment, some sort of home base, and their obligations to whatever guild, order or faith that both trains them and keeps them supplied. We'll get back to the training in a second. To go further into how different the experience point and leveling up concepts were, Just check these quotes from early D&D classes when they first appeared officially in the rules for the Cavalier and the Barbarian. To advance a level, the Cavalier must be trained by another Cavalier of at least 4th level or 2 levels higher than the Cavalier's current level, whichever is higher. However, after attaining 6th level, the Cavalier's normal regimen will suffice for training, and the Cavalier does not need others to allow them to advance in level. Allow an advance in level. That means that if the Dungeon Master has some antagonistic force wipe out the whole order of Cavaliers in the region, something that is very cliche in character backstory essays players provide to DMs these days, like they're somehow allergic to any family, faith, or organizational ties to the character's origin, they could not advance in that character class until they found higher level Cavaliers surviving elsewhere. They would have to either stop gaining levels or choose another class to gain levels in. Now for the Barbarian, one of my favourite obscure official rules from early D&D, and you can imagine the absolute mayhem this would cause in a modern game. Barbarians in general detest magic and those who use it. They will, at lower levels of experience, refuse to employ any sort of magic item, or if they recognise it as such. They will often seek to destroy magic items, and if successful, they receive an experience point award as if they possessed the destroyed items. While magic users will be shunned initially and always viewed with suspicion, clerics spells of the type used by shamans and witch doctors are not so viewed, though high-level clerical spells are suspect. Also, in 1st edition D&D, only humans could ever be barbarians. You can imagine the outrage if a barbarian destroyed magic items for experience point gains, and remember, characters were expected to attain experience levels at different rates of speed in the early game, so a barbarian could literally prevent other characters gaining gold coin experience from selling magic items because the barbarian already destroyed the enchanted gear, or their rage caused them to have to kill enemies rather than capture and ransom them. This is stuff nobody talks about these days, and I question if the modern designers of D&D's next iteration would even know what I'm talking about. Ignore history and you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. Now, compare this to Palladium's attitude to how experience points work, and it's a stark contrast. So here is the experience point guide chart. You'll notice the difference immediately. It is focused on roleplay. Encouraging clever thinking and playing in character is tangibly rewarded. There is a much more narrative system, quite advanced and far more like a modern role-playing game, including Dungeons & Dragons' latest editions. I'll quote the game designer directly here as he summed up the reasoning behind this chart and why experience points are viewed quite nicely. From the Palladium role-playing game revised edition published in 1983. It's difficult to devise a point system by which a game master can judge and reward his players fairly. The ultimate purpose of experience points and experience levels is to provide a means by which the player character can grow and develop. Many games avoid the whole question of experience points by the system in which points are pumped back into the powers, but this leaves skills undeveloped as well as being pretty drab. The subjective method of observation and logic introduced into the Palladium role-playing game has been so well received that I'm not only keeping it in the 2nd edition, but I've successfully transplanted it into all of our games. I feel that any twit could punch out or blast a villain that just crawled out of the woodwork. Most experience systems concentrate on the kill factor, but what about the thought process? What about the decisions, plans, or motives behind a particular action? Doesn't cleverness and a cool head count? Aren't these the true ingredients of good role-playing? Shouldn't the brilliant medical student playing a character with an IQ of 4 and staying firmly in character, saying and doing things as the character would, even though he realizes the foolishness or stupidity as a player, get experience for playing in character? Hell yes! Considering how flexible and subjective most of the other role-playing conditions and rules are, I don't see the logic in having a strict, limited experience point system. Each player character involved in a given situation or confrontation should receive the appropriate experience points. The Game Master should make a list of his players at the beginning of the game and jot down each player's experience points as they gather them throughout the course of the game. At the end of the Game Master totals each player's points and gives them the total to keep track of their growing experience and skills. The difficulty with the system is determining experience points is subjectivity. The Game Master must utilize the preceding experience outline with some thought and try to be fair and unbiased. Example, 8 3rd level characters brimming with magic and armed to the teeth attack and subdue one lone 4th level villain or minor monster, and 8 players should receive experience points for subduing a minor menace. After all, the poor guy didn't have a chance and presented no real threat to the characters. However, 1 or 2 1st level or 2nd level characters subdued the same villain, they should receive experience for subduing a major or even a great menace, depending on how powerful it was, because the threat and ingenuity involved were much greater. I have found this method stimulates imaginative playing instead of promoting slash and kill gaming. Warning: game masters, don't be Santa Claus, heaping wonderful amounts of experience points. Be fair and tolerant. Let your players truly earn their experience points, growing in skill, knowledge and power. If you have a group of players rising rapidly in experience levels, you know it's because they are clever and imaginative players, and that's what the game is all about. So, I hope today you'll have a much better understanding of the fundamental differences between Dungeons & Dragons and the Palladium Megaversal Rules role-playing games, and that helps push you towards trying out some games in my favourite RPG of all time. Nothing could make me happier. My name is AJ Pickett. I make videos about alien and monster lore, RPG history and gaming lore, and as always, thank you for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.